careers ranging from see every software engineer, every person in IT, they will start with programming, right? Programming and then testing and then lead and then they go to management roles. So that is what I have been doing. It's a very uh, it's a normal profile, a typical profile of a IT person. The thing is that you have to move ahead in your technology with full enthusiasm and should not become very monotonous in leading your career and moving ahead in your life, because that is very important. And don't give don't think that job is everything and you need to give your life and everything for your job. So you have to maintain a good balance. I'll talk about all these things apart from the topic that I am assigned to do today, that is the artificial intelligence. So let's start. Okay, so first I'll share the agenda for today. We'll talk about what is AI, the history, evolution, why, how, all these basic questions related to the subject matter, and then where it is in the today's world. What are the practical applications? Where do we see this? Because we hear about this every day, every other day. Even our Prime Minister Modi has been speaking about it. He has been talking to different companies. He even met our IBM CEO recently to talk about this. And all over the world, he discusses about this. Whenever we talk about IT, the artificial intelligence comes there as a major discussion item. Then the role and contribution of IBM in AI, what it has done. Uh, I'll also talk about the COVID-19 because that is impacting our life currently. So it is very important to talk about AI because AI has helped a lot during the COVID times. Then the future of AI in India, where we see ourselves, where how India is going to gain from using AI, from learning AI. Then the caution, there has to be for everything, there need to be some caution, and we cannot just go ahead and think that okay, this technology is very good and we have to use it in everything. No, we have to take our cautions. We have to see how best it can suit our needs. We can't, we have to take always a decision on the pros and cons of everything, not only because it has some good things and we take it. No, so those things we'll discuss. Then we'll come to the human intelligence aspect, that is very important. And during the last part, I'll be discussing about my experiences and learning throughout my career of 21 years. And then I'll be open to questions from you. Okay, so all of you must have heard about AI. That is, I am just assuming that because I think most of you are from NIT Warangal studying that, and many other people from outside also have joined this. They also have got at least some idea about AI. So I think this slide will talk about what it is, and with this you will know, you will have a good knowledge about what is AI and what is its impact, where we are using it, why it is needed. So first of all, I'll tell you that we all know what is human intelligence, right? We all have been using that because it's we call it common sense, and since it is god gifted, we don't give it much importance. We think that okay, it's by default. Its importance is only given when there is some problem, some mental issue comes up in a human being. Then you understand what is the importance of intellect, what is the importance of the human intelligence. There we know about it. So we don't give that much importance. That is what I wanted to say. But if this, the decision making power that we have in ourselves, that is god gifted, if this power is given to a machine, and uh, not, we can't give it totally, it can be only maybe a fraction of a percentage, maybe not more than that, as per the current advancement in technology. So if we train a machine to treat like a human, to take decisions, to apply the reasoning that we do, uh, to differentiate between maybe good and bad, differentiate between different colors, and see something and then know what it is, and predict something or the future, that this is the current trend, this is what is going to happen with this trend. If we give all these knowledge to a machine and we train it accordingly, then uh, that kind of intelligence that we are giving it to a machine, that becomes a machine intelligence. And then it is called artificial intelligence, because that is not God made, that is made by us, and we are training it. So once that kind of thing is there, it will be able to help us. That is what we believe, that artificial intelligence will help us, and in our advancement, in our health, in our future, in our education, in all aspects. And it will be able to solve many of our problems. If we talk about the computer science subject, then it is the machine intelligence, that is what I'm talking about. And basically it's a computer. It can be a computer, it can be a processor that is used in a computer, it can be any device in which we train, and it acts, it is able to do decisions, take decisions, and work like a machine. So that is which is not a natural intelligence, that is a trained intelligence. It is called artificial intelligence. Now there are three types, I would say three stages of AI. Everything has an evolution, right? So it's not like something goes to the highest point at the same time. There will be different stages. So first stage is a narrow or weak AI, which is a very, as the word says, it is not a very advanced AI. It is a very starting AI, application of AI to do some small things. For example, and these are the AIs. You might be thinking that AI is very much advanced, but I would say no, it is not advanced at all. It is now currently at the weak or narrow level. And these are the Google Assistant that you have. These are the Alexa that you see, the Siri from Apple, and the smart devices you have, the Watson from IBM. All these are examples of narrow or weak AI that we have. Second stage is the general or strong AI. So here, the AI is able to solve problems that humans may take more time, much more time. And here, there are many things that we can't even imagine as of now, which AI would be able to do. Though God has gifted us, but we do not know about potential. Most of the human beings are able to use their brain maybe up to 6, 7%, 8%. But the AI, if it's given more power, it will be able to do large number of things. And that is called the strong AI. We have not reached that yet. It will take years for human beings. And then we have the third form, which is the highest form, which is called artificial superintelligence. So here it is able to do all kinds of things which even humans won't be able to do. And a good example you would have found in the movie Robot from Rajnikant sir, and the Terminator movie we saw long years back from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So all these movies you must have seen, wherein the body breaks into very small parts, and those parts are able to build themselves again, and then they have the science of recreation. So those things are not there in human being right now. So that is the third and highest level of AI, which is called the artificial superintelligence. That is a science fiction as of now. Now we go to the history of AI. So personally, I am always very much interested in knowing about India and how things developed in India, because nowadays we know many things that were evolved, that were invented in India, but unfortunately we do not know. We always know from our books and all. We only know about scientists from different countries, different other countries, maybe Germany, US, France, Russia, but we are very less. We know very less about the Indian things that we had. But I came to know about this through one of the articles that I read. In that, it was mentioned that it was as per Vedas. In Mahabharat, it was used. The artificial intelligence was used, and it was called Kritya or Kritya in Sanskrit. That was a device, that was a robotic tool which was used for security, war, assassination, and military purposes. And the Vedic Brahmins and Rig Vedic Brahmins were experts in making of these krityas. So we saw in Ramayana and even in Mahabharata, we see in Gurukuls they teach many things about arms and uh, all those archeries and all. So we are not able to believe now because we think that they look like fiction, but there were science there also. If we learn more about Vedas, if we come to know about them, we will know more. And these were they were using many robotic things like assassins, security sentinels, and war assistants. And I would say, as I said, due to general disconnect today between modern civilization and Vedic studies, we do not know much about them and how robotic technology was used. So I believe we should be able to learn more as people become more aware. So that is why I wanted to bring this slide and show this to you, so that if we get interested, we should try to study them more and know about them. Coming to the modern science and how the AI evolved in the modern world. So uh, it was the classical philosophers, they thought about human thinking as a symbolic system, how it can be simulated, how if you don't think it like a if you think it like it can be replicated or it can be done by something else, then that kind of thought, which started in 1955, it was called classical philosophers thought, and from there the AI evolved. It was a logic theorist, that was a computer program that was written in 1956 by Alan Neville, Herbert Simon, and Cliff Shaw. It was the first AI made and engineered to perform automated reasoning. That was in 1956. And same year, 1956, John McCarthy was regarded as the father of AI, as he coined the term AI at a conference in Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. So this is the history of modern artificial intelligence that we talk about and how it evolved. This slide talks about the evolution of AI, year-wise chronological order. So in 1943, the artificial neurons evolved. Then it was a Turing machine in 1950. Turing machine are they are basically mechanical machines that read some symbols and do some act based upon that. So they are used in factories and all. Then in 1956, it was birth of AI, as I just mentioned before this slide. In 1966, we had the first chatbot called Eliza. In 1972, a first intelligence robot, the Wabot 1, was evolved. Between 74 and 80, it was called the first AI Winter. Sorry for the spelling. It's Winter actually. So Winter means there was no importance given to AI research. There was no budget given to AI and nothing at all. No, that is why it is called a lean period. You can see the graph. It is in having a lean period, and there was no talk about AI because people thought that it's lots of money is being spent and there is nothing productive we are getting. So that happened between 74 to 80. In 1980, we got expert system computers in which the AI was being used. Then from 87 to 93, there was a second AI winter. Again, people showed lack of interest. Even the government didn't show any interest in research. In 1997, Deep Blue named IBM computer was evolved using AI, and it was able to beat the world chess champion Garry Kasparov. So that was a very good breakthrough, and uh, we were able to analyze that okay, a machine would be able to play chess, and it was able to beat the world chess champion in 1997 from IBM. In 2002, we saw a vacuum cleaner in which AI was used. It was called Roomba. Then in 2011, from 2011, the IBM Watson came up. It won a quiz show. Though IBM Watson was being worked from 2004 to 2011, 2011 it was able to show what it is made for, and it became very famous. 2012 we have the Google now. In 14 we got the chatbot Eugene, and in 2015 we got the Amazon Echo, and now we have everything like Siri, the Alexa, all these things, and Google Assistant as well. So this is the evolution of AI right from 1943 till today. Now the question is that we have already talked about evolution, the history, what it is. Now the question is why we use AI, why not human intelligence? So human intelligence has everything, but the speed that we need to cater to today's world, the 700 crore population that we have, more than 7 billion population in the world, the kind of data that we have, the kind of work that is needed, it is becoming very, very difficult to handle all those, to take decisions, to interpret things, to take complex decisions based upon that data. So that is why the AI is very important, because AI is helping us to solve that issue of heavy data. And it is able to understand, reason, plan, communicate, perceive, that is needed from the software, and it is very efficient, it is effective, and its cost is also very low. So I would just compare what is the power of AI. It is like there is a room in which there is a haystack and a needle falls there. Then the power of AI is similar to finding a needle from a haystack. So that kind of data it is analyzing. It can scan through zillions of files and make a conclusion and decision within seconds, for which specialists may take hours. It can solve large computation within seconds. It can scan multiple images and help in image recognition. For example, the Facebook tag. You see now, whenever you upload some photo, it will ask you to tag. It will come up with some examples from its own, and most of the time it would be correct. So that is there. It is being used. It can be fed with multiple algorithms to analyze a situation and draw conclusion that humans take years. So this is what I said just now. Now going to the next slide. I hope I am not going very fast. So you are able to listen and listen and know the data what I am speaking about. Okay, so now I'll talk about how AI is implemented. It is a very user-friendly language I have used here, even though we have all technical people here, but still I wanted to make it very, very interesting. You know, if I talk about very much, if I talk about big jargons or IT terms that people will not understand, it creates a void and then you will get bored. That is why I first wanted to increase some interest in yourself. My agenda here is not talking about the technical part of it, because technical part cannot be covered in 1.5 hours. You will have to take some kind of training, the machine language training, and learn all those either in your college or some form of Udemy or anything. You will have to do that in order to learn that, how to do that. So I'll only talk about the ground, how we do it in layman terms, in user-friendly terms. So now, how AI is being implemented. Now, machine learning is typically categorized as 3 types. One is supervised learning. So supervised learning is the first form of making a machine learn. For example, if we show a picture of an apple and then label it as an apple, and we show it to a app, for example, then it will get that into its memory. It will save it into its memory, and the machine will be able to learn that this kind of picture is of an apple. Okay, so that is called a supervised learning. So it's like labeled data. Every photo will have a label, and then it will try to map that and come up with a answer. So that is called a supervised learning. So nowadays you can see lots of apps which are for small kids, uh, from which if you take a picture of anything, it will tell what it is. So there it is being used. That is an example of supervised learning. Then we have unsupervised learning. This is a bit higher level of learning. In this case, the data is given to the learning algorithm and it is not labeled like the previous one. This the algorithm is asked to identify patterns in input data. For example, it will get the history. For example, there is a user in Amazon or a Flipkart or any shopping site who has been searching for some data since some time. Next time when you open Amazon, it will ask you that this particular thing is available now and you will get a good discount on this. You may find these interesting. Or else if you have bought, for example, a swimming pool, then it will show you some pictures of a pump and other accessories which are related, which will be helpful in your swimming pool, right? So this is one kind of unsupervised learning, and you all must have experienced this. This picture shows that example of the unsupervised learning. Then the third form, how the machine is taught, is called the reinforcement learning. This is the highest form. Here the algorithm interacts with a dynamic environment. It is not a very static, so it is a bit tougher. And here lots of coding must be written for this. Here it provides feedbacks uh, in terms of rewards and punishments. For example, self-driving car, cycles. You can see a picture here. So uh, in case of a self-driving cycle or a car, the safety is the major concern of the driver as well as not the driver. It is anyway, yeah, self-driven car will also have some people as a passenger. So, and also the people who are on the road. So the safety is the major concern. And how will it learn about that safety? Because that program has to be taught. It has to be taught that whenever there is some obstacle in maybe a 1 feet or 2 feet distance, how it has to react. If there is a car in front of that car, if it is 50 meters ahead, if it is 20 meters ahead, if it is 10 meters ahead, how it has to react, when it has to take a decision. If there is a tree on right hand side, if there is a traffic police, if there's a red light, how it has to react. So all these things has to be taught to it. Otherwise, it will not be successful. So that is the highest form of learning, and that is called the reinforcement learning. Okay, so now I talked about what and how. I'll talk about now the practical applications of AI, because it is very important. You will be able to relate where we are seeing AI. I would say practically everything we are seeing AI nowadays. The first example is of a chatbot. So that is to have a good customer experience. Whenever you open a banking website or any website nowadays, you will get a chatbot. So it works 24/7 because it is not by human, and it knows. It will ask you questions. It will and 90% of chances are there that your question will get answered. It works 24/7, so it will be very helpful for the customers. It will just get your basic information about maybe your account information, and then it will map. It will know your name and other things, and it will try to answer what you need. There the AI is used. Then we go to the second one, the finance. In finance sector, as I said, there are zillions of data from different reports. There are physical reports, there are digital reports, lots of things are there nowadays. So in the finance sector, it is very important to use AI in the share market, in the stock market. So where a particular share is going, what is the market value of a particular product, and how will a product perform tomorrow, or based upon its previous data. What is the market condition? How is the economy going to work? How a economy will react based upon some decision of a government? All these things are being taken care by AI, and we are least aware what AI is doing. We just see one single line in a newspaper headline or some financial report that this company is will gain with this decision. We just see that line, but there are lots of things going on behind that, and everywhere AI is being used. Then we have the social media. Here, every day when you open your Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, anything, you will see many feeds, many notifications there. So, and they are not from any person. It's all by AI, because AI knows what are your interests. If you had liked some news yesterday, it will come up with suggestion for you today, that you had liked this page yesterday, so you might want to see these websites. You might be interested in this. You can register in this event because you want you like that music. You might be interested in this event. So all these things are taken care by the AI very much in all your social media sites, either LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, everywhere, Twitter. Then we have this personalized shop experience. Google Analytics is being used. It is a very good example. So we are very less aware how our data is being used. How, as I said, when we go to a shopping website, what we do in Google, what we search in Google, all those things get fed into some data, and they get analyzed by some form of algorithm which is using the artificial intelligence, and they know. That is why even the Google suggests you sometimes, or it's not like every person will not get the same suggestions from Google. It's so much personalized that every person's laptop, every person's phone, that will get a different kind of suggestion, because it is accustomed, it is customized as per that person's settings, that person's preferences. So that is so powerful thing, and we just ignore these things, even though lots of algorithm is being used, lots of AI is being used there, lots of intelligence are being used. Next example is of smart cars and drones, the autonomous drones. So if I talk about drones, these are not only the toy drones that our that we play or our kids play and we get on Amazon and Flipkart. These are very for entertainment. These are very I would say a small utilization of drones. Uh, Currently, the big companies like Walmart, Amazon, all these are doing lots of research on drone technology, so that they'll be able to deliver products. Whatever we order on Amazon or other websites, they will slowly get delivered by drones. I think there were a few examples of delivery, pizza delivery also by drones that happened in some countries. And this will happen in India also and in many other countries. And nowadays, most of the camera, most of the shooting in either in cricket or in marriage parties also, we see drone cameras being used, and making good videos, making musical videos. Everywhere drone is being used. So once the drone is able to get the its prediction, its precision, or it becomes more accurate with more of AI and usage of AI in this area, it will be able to um it will be able to cater to most of the users, and all the deliveries will be done by them. No, no person will be needed to deliver products. Even high-rise buildings, they will be able to deliver through the balcony, or maybe uh, they might be able to go to the door as well. So that is the power of drone. The autonomous cars, smart cars, as I already discussed about smart cars, where AI is being used. Then we all have heard about Alexa, Siri. These devices you are getting, many of you must be having those at your homes. So apart from these, there are smart devices. So at home, almost all of your devices, you will be able to connect to a central hub from where you can control them. So they have become intelligent, as we say. So just from the comfort of your phone, you'll be able to switch off your washing machine or TV or anything, or your fridge, microwave, even your fans and lights. It's just a question of that device being installed at the near the switch for the at your home. So even if you have forgotten to switch off your lights and fans while you have gone somewhere, you'll be able to switch it off easily from anywhere in the world. So that is the power of AI. Then we have security and surveillance. So these cameras, CCTV cameras that we use, they have the facial recognition, the voice recognition system as well. Not every camera has those powers, but we have those power. I mean, if you want, you can use those. You can assemble. You can purchase them and use them. If you see in military, in army, and in very high surveillance places, these are being used. And just by seeing the picture of that particular person, or if you are able to see the iris, the eyes, just from seeing the iris, they will know everything, all the history of that person, and even they are able to recognize the voice. So with the voice also, they will be able to know who is at the door, who is at the gate. The healthcare system. So AI is using the surgeons today to do diagnosis of many diseases, because previously the doctors had to spend so much time, the specialists had to wait so much. It was maybe many times it took more than 4 days, 5 days to get a blood report and know about the conclusion what is the disease that that person is having. But now with the AI advancement, it is helping the healthcare industry a lot. And even apart from that, even coming up with new medicines, new vaccines, the AI is helping a lot. Then in travel and navigation industry, so nowadays, I think almost all of you must be using this map for traveling to some place. And map is it's not just like it will give you a map and then stay quiet. No, it will take decision. It will if there is a traffic jam, if there is a toll in that particular route, it will tell you about everything that you want to know, which will be helpful for you to save time. It will give you 4 or 5 options that this route will have more money, you will it will cost more, this route will take more time, this route will have less traffic or more traffic. So all these decisions it will all these routes it will give, and you can get your best you can just select your best route, and it will help you to travel to that particular place without any hiccups. Because uh, previously before these I remember there was so much problem. We had to stop and ask someone, and during the night time it was very difficult to know the route, because many times in the map it would say that this road is there, but in India you all must have seen that there are no names of the road. On the road you will never see, many times you will not see the name of the road, so it becomes very very difficult. There this mapping tool which uses AI, it is very very helpful. Then we have this Watson, that is a IBM product, Watson. So this is just one example. I'll explain about more examples of Watson, how it is helping us from AI perspective. So creative arts, in arts also, and then it is able, the Watson Beat is able to compose different music, and it is helping the composers, musicians today to come up with different musics. You must be seeing many YouTubers coming up with new music, and suddenly in one day they are becoming they get more than million subscribers suddenly. So all these it's not always creativity that counts, it's many times the digital world that is helping them, and many of the tools they have been using. I have talked to many musicians, and they say that nowadays the apps a number of apps are helping them to come up with new music. So there were some very good examples of large number of things wherein AI is being used. Now I would just show some more examples. These examples, uh, I would say they are not very tangible, but they are very, very important. And we experience them on daily basis. For example, in the email filtering, uh, the AI is able to come up and say that these you should put these in the spam, and you can put the spam filter can be put. It automatically goes to a spam, a certain kind of email, maybe from a certain kind of domain that is coming from. Then the some fraud detection also AI is using. If in a banking site some strange activity is going on, if some different person is trying to log in with your account from some unknown devices that the bank is unaware about, it will flag, it will tell you that this was done. Even when you try to log in into your Facebook from two devices, you will get an automatic email nowadays saying that there was an unusual activity. Please confirm if it were you who tried to log in. So these things are helping us from fraud detection perspective. Speech recognition, we have AI helping us there. Uh, Even, for example, Samsung has one. Samsung phones have this ability to being used by the visually impaired people. So there is a button there. If that is clicked, then they will not need to see the phone. They can just uh, they can just spell it out, and that app will open. They can just call any people. So everywhere the AI is using them. The other examples are Amazon's Alexa and Apple Siri. All these you have been knowing about. Then photo recognition applications for the visually impaired or translating pictures into speech, as we talked about this just now. Then stock market, I told about this in the financial sector, how it is using to it helps to translate the language or predict the stock market, where it is going, how the product is behaving, where it will go tomorrow. All these decisions are taken by AI enabled systems. Okay, so now since I have been working with IBM since 5+ years, I would come to discuss about IBM and its role for AI, how it has been helping. So I'm sure many of you people uh, might be joining IBM this year or next year because you are going to pass out from the college. So you'll find this company very interesting and you will want to join. So this thing will help you when you come to IBM. So starting the if we talk about the evolution of AI in IBM, so you all know it is more than 100 years old company, and the AI device that was created, the first one was called the Deep Blue, IBM Deep Blue. It was a chess playing AI device which was able to defeat the world chess champion Gary Kasparov in 1997. So that I have already talked about in one of my previous slides. IBM Deep Blue. We have this Watson. So this Watson is a very, I would say, most um in IBM, people are very much talking about this, and even throughout even outside IBM, the Watson is is becoming very, very popular, and it started developing from 2004 till 2011, and it was able to beat the television game show Jeopardy. From then onwards, it became famous with public. The IBM Watson has a number of applications, I would say, where it is using in almost every field. It is using people. It is being used by people and government for development in almost all streams of life. So it has a chatbot which is currently in the COVID-19 pandemic. This IBM Watson came up with a chatbot which is helping the government, the healthcare officials, the academic institutions cope with the high quantum of questions, because many people many institutions are having questions about COVID-19 pandemic, and this chatbot was able to help them because it's not possible to have people every time to answer. We don't have the capacity, that much capacity of people to talk about that and every time answer a phone. So chatbot is helping them a lot. And chatbot harnesses the NLP, the natural language processing technology. It is available in 13 languages, including English. The IBM AI enables companies to shift to enterprise AI architecture and helps in confronting data issues and bridging the AI skills gap. It is also giving training to people on AI. It helps companies to become AI innovator so that they are able to meet today's challenges and prepare for the future. The Watson Health Citizen Engagement helps making vital social services, including housing assistance, available to residents affected by shutdown. So during the COVID-19, it is helping a lot in tourism sector, dining, entertainment sector. It is helping the residents of Clark County, Nevada in US to get the assistance that they need. So that is a very recent example. The IBM Watson Health, that is a data analytics and technology partner for the health industry, and it is committed to helping build smarter health ecosystem. So in the health sector, it is helping a lot. In the sector of agriculture, it is helping to improve irrigation. So there is an example here. A developer named Takuchi from South Africa. He saw how it was helping in irrigation, and he partnered with IBM using the IBM Garage methods, design thinking, and Watson. He was able to collect and analyze the climate, soil, crop yield to determine the best timing for watering crops. So in agriculture also, it is helping people and institutions across the world. Then the Watson Walks, that is another product. Here, a curated set of products. It is a curated set of products that is designed to help companies address the challenges associated with returning employees to the workplace. So now, after the lockdown and after Corona, during the unlock phases, now that people are returning back to their workplace, the students need to get back to their schools. For all these things, there need to be something which we should be able to help them, because things cannot be as normal as before. So now safety, security, social distancing, all the new norms, all the regulations, all the law, everything need to be taken care. So in that aspect, in that area, this Watson Works is helping people. It is helping the companies so that they are able to make their environment very safe for the employee, is able to make the schools and colleges, institutions safe so that they are able to return back to their work, return back to their schools and colleges. As I said, in healthcare, so in healthcare, there is one more, I would say, a feather in the cap that IBM is having. IBM and Michael Fox Foundation developed a machine learning disease progression model, which is to help on the Parkinson's disease and find its underlying causes. So AI is emerging tech that most students are interested, as I talked about this before as well. So nowadays, as I talked, it is so important for everyone to know about AI, and if they learn about AI, they'll be able to contribute a lot to the society. So IBM is helping build academic, technical, and professional skills for students. They provide free online resources focusing on AI, so that most of the people nowadays become aware about AI and gain some kind of interest in AI, so that they are able to contribute more. Okay, so now since we all are suffering from this corona, and we are seeing this impact on health, on the global economy, and I would say in every in everything, in every area, there has been some or the other impact from corona in most of the industries, tourism industry, hotel industry. That is why I will talk about this COVID-19 pandemic and how AI is helping in the current scenario. So this is the data of today. As of now, 49.2 million, that is 4.9 crore official corona positive cases uh, have been there in the world. And I would say these are official. There are many unofficial. There are many people who are not reporting as well, which get unnoticed. Many people are infected, and fortunately, they are able to heal themselves. They are able to get themselves quarantined, and then they get well soon. Also in 14 days. So that is a different count, which I will not be able to give figures about that. But 4.9 is the 4.9 crore is the official figure, and out of them 12.4 lakh deaths have been occurred due to corona. So this comes out to be around 2.5%. So during the initial phase, during June July, there were 4% deaths due to corona, and this rate of death is decreasing now. Even though this current death rate is also very high, 2.5% is also very high, but still it is decreasing. And I would say artificial intelligence have been a major factor in helping us sail through this corona. I would not say it was a smooth sail, and it is not completed. It is not over yet. We are still facing. Even the many countries have the peak one, first peak, then second peak have also come. Some countries are facing the third peak. So it is not. It will take some time, some more time. I would think personally. I would think at least 6 to 7 months before we get some kind of good vaccination, because vaccination is also not very easy. The normal vaccination that we have in market takes at least 5 years. But in corona situation, so uh, the science and AI, everything is used. Everything is doing lots of research so that we get some kind of vaccine. It will not be 100% effective. It might not be, but yes, something that we can vouch upon, something that we will feel safe with. We should be able to get that at least in 7 to 8 months, as per the data we are getting from different countries and different areas. So let's go to the next page. So how AI is helping in global pandemic? So not only corona, we had pandemic before as well, though they were not so much uh, impactful like corona. But in those cases as well, we had AI, which helped us a lot. So if we talk about the various areas in which it is helping, so this is mostly pertaining to the health sector, because corona is pertaining to the health sector. So in case of vaccination development, it is AI is helping a lot, because without AI, it is very difficult to get a good and viable option on the vaccination, because it takes data, it takes zillions of data, as I said. It analyzes them, it fetches the protein structure and all the old experiments, all the old kind of virus cells and structures that it has. Based upon them, it comes up with a structure, the best solution it will come up, uh, which will help us to get a vaccination. Then it helps to reduce the infection and the spreading of corona, because it comes up with decisions, those decisions which, for example, we should maintain a 6 feet distance, we should wear mask, we should use sanitizer, all those things. So it's not just by the help of human decision or by a study or conclusion by a human being that we came up with these statements. The AI helped a lot to come up with these decisions, and that is how these became law in many countries, and they are being implemented so that the infection is getting reduced and the spread is less. Then the diagnosis and treatment in hospitals. For this purpose also AI is used. In many cases the chest x-rays AI is being used, and it is able to just by looking the x-ray it is able to say that okay, it is corona, COVID-19. Then in case of cost and billing for faster settlement in hospitals, because we see a large number of people getting affected, the hospitals are getting full with people. So in those case it is very very difficult for human being to take care, because it will be a large queue, and they will not able to cater to that kind of crowd. So AI is helping there a lot. The government regulatory bodies collect data and process with AI to use for reporting purpose. Then research and developers use the data for creating drugs, as I mentioned before. People access to information for self-diagnosis, getting location of nearby positive cases. So one of this example I'll just share in the next slide, how people are getting access to information about the corona, about how many corona patients you have nearby, what precautions or what hospitals are nearby which can help you for if you get some corona infection, what are your symptoms and whether you have a chance, how much chance you have. All these things AI is used. Okay, so continuing the same discussion, these are the apps where the AI is being used to help us for corona. This Arogya Setu app, you all must have seen this app, and most of us must have installed this, because it had become mandatory by the government of India to install. So it is made by government of India, and at the very initial stages of corona, I think in May or June, it was created and people were asked to install in their smartphones. So it helps us to know about how many corona infected people are in what radius from our current location. It has a Bluetooth enabled device, and it automatically gives us a notification if there is some corona positive people around us, either in 1 kilometer or 500 meter or 200 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer, all those data. Apart from that, it also informs us about the initiatives by the government of India, and gets data from us, and tells about the risk, how much we have, based upon the data that we provide, the best practices that we should use, and for example the social distancing and sanitizer and all those things, which and the advisories also it will provide, whether there is some kind of lockdown going on, or what are the kind of things, what are government advisories that are given, which are the red zone, which are orange zone, green zone, all those things. Then we have this IBM Watson. I have already talked a lot about this IBM Watson. This chatbot, as I have already spoken about, it is helping people to answer on COVID-19 related questions, consultancy on that. There is a company called Insilo Medicine. This is a startup based in Maryland, US. It used AI to identify molecules that could form a basis for effective treatment of COVID-19. It took 4 days to identify thousands of new molecules that could be turned into medicine. So this is a live example wherein it is using to create drugs. There are more examples. This Emerald, it is a wireless device that infers people's vital signs by wireless. So just putting that device, connecting that device to the person, the COVID-19 affected person, the doctor who is sitting somewhere outside at a safe distance, he will be getting all the vital signs of that particular patient, and just by remaining there, they will be able to uh, get the information if there is some kind of emergency, how is the heartbeat, everything, and they will be able to assist the patient from there itself. Then the CT scans of corona patient, this was used in China a lot. So these CT scans are able to differentiate between the scans of common viral pneumonia and COVID-19, for which a doctor normally spends 15 minutes. But this AI helps to interpret that within 20 seconds with 96% accuracy. Blue Dot is a Canadian company which specializes in infectious disease investigation. It predicted about this corona in December using AI powered system. And it even used the global airline ticketing system, ticketing data to predict how soon and where corona will reach fast. So here AI health prediction uh, is very, very efficient. It was able to predict which countries are more vulnerable, which city is more vulnerable, which airports are more vulnerable. And based upon that, the government of different countries were able to take decisions, and they were able to start the lockdown in those places. This Google Launcher service in 2008, it tried to find the flu outbreaks by using people search queries. The supermarket purchases, the browsing patterns, the private messages also were being used by Google AI data. So Google predicted the 2009 swine flu 2 weeks before US officials by using the data from Google searches. So whatever we search on Google, even that is being used widely by the Google, and their AI is widely being used to predict certain things. Okay, so now we'll talk about the future of AI in India. So by 2025, AI can add over $500 billion and almost 20 million jobs, meaning 2 crore jobs to the Indian economy. That is a prediction. By 2035, the AI can add 957 billion, that is almost double of the 2025 to the Indian economy. Opportunity of AI in India is colossal. It is very, very high because there's lots of scope in lots of areas, in government areas, in private areas, in most of the departments in India. The AI will be very, very helpful in health sector, in education sector, everywhere. Any place you talk about, it will help a lot. So India is the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing major economies. So here the AI will be very, very helpful, and it will help a lot. As per data, the number of LinkedIn members adding AI skills to their profiles increased 190% between 2015 and 17. So within 2 years, I don't know about the current data, but yes, there have been must be much more than this, the AI skills in their profiles. So I would encourage everybody here who are listening to me to learn about AI, and you may go to this field. It is a very, very promising field, and it is a research area. There is lots of research. It's very challenging. It's very interesting, and as you see, it's never going to die. It will always grow. There's lots of growth potential, exponential growth potential, and the salary range in India for the entry level AI is almost for almost 40% of professionals. They are around 6 lakh. Uh, for mid level and senior level, they can be more than 50 lakh per annum for the AI professionals. So it will help in your career as well, and it will help for your country as well for the growth. So I have already talked about everything about AI, most of the things in most of the areas. Now it is a very important topic that I want to cover. That is the caution that we need to take in case of AI, because um, not see everything in this world. Whatever you do, there are some pros and some cons in that area. So there can be some negative part as well. There can be something that is not good. We cannot blindly follow anything and just keep on working in that area. We have to take care of many things. There can be many security things, compliance things, many things that can get affected. So lots of caution need to be taken. in most of the AI based system. So and in fact dependence on machine in general as well. So most of the machines I would say have AI currently. So if I say dependence on AI based or dependence on machine based, uh, we can assume that it's almost same. So today there is so much dependence that we don't remember the phone numbers of our beloved ones also. We do not remember the way to someone's place. So it is a very high chance that we'll forget, we'll lose the way if we don't use the maps. We forget to eat medicines. Nowadays people are so much dependent on their cell phones and the alarms. They are not able to wake on time if the alarm doesn't ring. They are purchasing fit bands to take care of their physical fitness, because until the fitband tells them to walk more or run more, they do not do that themselves. So these are not very good things. We must be very careful in all aspects. We must use AI based system. We must use all machines to not for our not to become lazy, but to become more healthy, but to use it for our convenience, so that we are able to save more time, we are able to grow more, we are able to grow our country more, and all those things. Without Google, it is totally unthinkable today. So that is also, I would say, it is a bit unfortunate, because nowadays we try to forget. Even someone asks about some movie when it came, who was the actor, we don't remember. We just try to Google. We don't want to remember, because we know that Google will help us. So that is too much dependence on the machines and AI. These are a few examples. Then there can be more impact, like loss of jobs. I said in one of slides that AI will come up with addition of jobs. That is very true, but there will be loss of jobs as well. So both the things are there. We have to take care that more jobs get created than the jobs we lose, and more efficiency, more productivity, everything. For that, it is very important that we train the people. So we don't want to substitute people with the machines. We want to train the people more, so that they are able to use the machines, they are able to create the machines and use it more effectively. So that is very important, because we have to take care of a human being. That is the most important pillar of development. Then we have the security threat. So that is also very important in any development. So we have a software development life cycle. If we talk about the IT industry, we have a life cycle for all kind of machines, all programs, everything we talk about, even the AI algorithm we use. So testing is a major part there. So testing has to be has to be done very carefully, and it should never be ignored or neglected. The security threat have to be taken care, the vulnerabilities, the compliance part, the regulation part from the government, all those things have to be taken care. Then invasion to privacy, the personal information, the sensitive personal information, all those compliance perspective have to be taken care. Without them, an AI shouldn't be released in any aspect. Laws shouldn't be breached. Then bias, AI bias means discrimination based upon data to create AI algorithms. Since the AI machine is very powerful and it is having all kinds of data from A to Z. So if we if some human being provides a program there which is a bit biased, then it might have some negative impact, and that is not wanted. So it is very important to avoid this AI bias. Then AI can be used for terrorism as well. So there the government has to be very careful in terms of having all kinds of security, physical security, then data security, digital security, all 3 levels, 4 levels of security, and biometrics, can everything must be there. Wherever very strategic or defense related thing is getting researched, all those NDA agreement, for example, the non-disclosure agreements must be signed. All those things must be taken care. then AI creation that is not aligned with human values and intentions. So we have seen these in movies, for example, in Robot. Also, we have seen wherein the AI technology falls into some bad elements in the society, and then they produce something that is that they want to help to destroy the world and conquer the world. So everywhere it has to. We have to be very very careful when it comes to AI usage and research and implementation. So now we have talked all about the artificial part of intelligence. I also wanted to talk about the human intelligence. Uh, really wanted to talk because we really ignore that. We just take it as granted because it was God gifted. So I would just say that um, we are very much dependent on AI today on most of our needs in presently, and in future it will be more. It is going to increase, but we have to take care that our intelligence must lead. I mean, the AI shouldn't surpass the human intelligence because we are the creators, and the creation will never be bigger than creator. So that is why the previous slide I discussed about is very important. We have to take care of this aspect as well, that it always acts like a slave. The AI developed machine, for example, a robot, doesn't become our master. We have to be masters. They should act like our slaves and help us. And we should not become like robots and just nowadays we see many people are acting like robots. They just forget their common sense, and they'll just and read the instruction and do like that. Don't take their they will not take their decisions and not use their intellect or common sense. So that is not good. That is a bad sign, and we should avoid those things. We should so these things can be achieved if we have to take care of our immunity, our health system. We must do some yoga, pranayama, and meditation. These things help us. And always remember that AI is our baby, and we have to create and use it for our convenience and better future, and not as a weapon for destruction. So with that, I conclude the discussion on AI. I will just want to spend 5 to 10 minutes on my last slide. That is my experience and learnings. These experiences and learnings I wanted to share because I am talking to the uh, I am an alumni of this college, and I am talking to the students from NIT Warangal. It is very very important that I share my experience, so that these things help you in your future, in your career, in your family life, and everywhere. So first of all, don't run for marks and syllabus coverage. Focus on concepts. That is very important. Sometimes your peers might laugh at you that you are just reading one subject since 2 days, 3 days, and you are not covering the other subjects. Just ignore that. It is important. The exams, you have to cover the syllabus. So for that purpose, you have to start preparing sometime back, not just on the last day of the exam or one day prior. So syllabus you have to cover, but more emphasis has to be given on concepts, because engineering nowadays, many people do engineering. There are 14 to 15 lakh engineers who come out from engineering colleges, but there are only 1 lakh to 2 lakh jobs in the whole of India. So become good engineers, become innovators, not only get marks, not only just to get a degree. So that is not a good thing, good sign. So because unfortunately in India there are less innovations, there are more jobs. It's like people are working like laborers, and the number of patents we see, they are very less. The innovations we see are very less, and the reason for that is the first point that I'm discussing. We do not focus on concept. We do not focus on quality. We more focus on the quantity aspect. So here, don't mug up things before the exams or just to cover the syllabus, because they will not help you in your future. It might help you to gain some marks in your college in your subject. You might come first or second in your college, but it will not help you in future. So try to get the concept, try to develop more quality, try to study in depth of that particular subject. Right from the nursery, right from class 3 or 4, you have seen how our school studies go on, right? When we learned about real numbers, that remains the first chapter from class 5 till class 10. And then in 11, 12 also real numbers is always there, the trigonometry is always there. So but it, as you grow, it becomes more depth. So you go into that, you learn the same subject in more depth, in more detail. So similarly, in BTech you learn something, and then you go to MTech, you learn in more depth the same subject. So it is very important to learn in more depth, try to get more concepts. Then okay, I'm getting some questions. So we have 5 to 10 more minutes, and then I will try to answer the questions. I'll just finish this in 5 more minutes. I'll take. So time management is very, very important. Be focused in all your efforts and give 100% while doing that work. So there is a concept called student syndrome. Uh, you all must be, I believe, at least 90% of you must be doing this. In fact, the people who have come to jobs, they also tend to go to this, use this syndrome. So basically, this is like, tomorrow I have an exam, so today I will start the study. This is called student syndrome. Even in project management, when we get a task to complete some module or something like that, in programming, if we get normally, if someone asks how much time you will take, we say 3 days, but we will not start for the first one day. We will just take rest. Second day, maybe in the evening, or some people might start in the third day. So that is called the student syndrome. So if we don't, if we get over this student syndrome, we will have more time. And believe me, everyone has got lots of time. You just need to focus. Whatever work you do, you give 100% time at that, during that duration. And 8 hours of work in an office is more than enough. You don't need to work even 10 minutes more, because if 8 hours of focused work is a very good amount of work, you will be able to complete everything, whatever you get. Realize your potential. As I said, it is infinite. The human beings have got infinite potential. It's not like Einstein was a alien. He was also a human being like us. Only thing that he was able to realize his potential. So for this, what are important? Yoga, meditation, and we'll be able to achieve all our dreams. Comfort and growth cannot coexist. Just remember this. It is very important. Whenever we say that, okay, when I get a job, I'll be comfortable. I'll be very much relaxed. It's not possible, because if you start relaxing, you will not able to grow. So growth, you have to work towards your growth. And remember that comfort will come automatically in your growth. Once you focus on your work, once you start loving your work, whatever job you go into, maybe you might not be working in the same field which you have studied. It is very less chances. You might be working something else. Even an electronics engineer here, even a computer engineer here, might be doing some kind of documentation in some very big company. It's not a guarantee that you will be given a code and asked to code. So it's not necessary. You might be doing some management work. You might be doing some clerical job in a very big company, maybe Microsoft as well. So you never know what will come in the platter. But it's very important for you to be focused, and you should know what you are interested in and try to study that part with more focus. That will help you to balance, that will help you to put more focus. And then take care of your family and maintain a very good work life balance. This is very important, because if you don't maintain a work life balance, uh, you will fail in both the fronts, even in your family or in your office. Because anywhere you have some tension, you'll bring that tension to the other area, and that is not good. So you must fix your personal issues first, You'll be able to work very good in your office in that case, and you'll have a good work-life balance. As I said about yoga meditation, they are very good to have a discipline. But disciplined life is very, very important. You just can't go get up at any time and sleep at any time and eat at any time. That is not at all good. You will feel that you may want to do that. Our body always wants some kind of rest or relaxation, but you should not try to give that thing to your body. Otherwise your body will not help you in your later stages. Then pursue your hobby. All of you must be having some kind of hobby, maybe music, singing, reading, writing, drawing, sports, cooking, anything that you are passionate about. Try to have that. Try to keep that hobby throughout your life, not just that in your student life or when you are in when you have time. If you say that when I will get time I'll do that, you will never do that. Believe me, you will never do that because you will never have time. As you grow in your career, as you become married, as you have kids, you are never going to have time. So you have to think that you have the time now. Now is the best time, and you have to dedicate 1 hour of yours to pursue your hobby. If you do that, if you take it as a discipline in a disciplined manner, you will always be very proud about that, and it will act as a stress buster. Whatever kind of stress, whatever kind of pressure you have in your office or in your family, it will be very, very helpful, and you will be able to strike a very good balance. And regarding time, I already told you have sufficient time to pursue your dreams, because Ramanujan, Aryabhat, Einstein, Newton, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, even Modi, everyone has got 24 hours per day. No one has got more time. Still, they were able to achieve their goals. They were able to become very much successful. They were able to dream high. They became very, very famous only because they were disciplined and they were hard worker. So discipline is very, very important. Otherwise, many people will say that I don't have time. That is a trap, in fact. Don't never fall in that trap that I don't have time. Always say I have time. Always have a positive attitude in your work everywhere. Whenever your boss tells you do this, you will say, okay, I'll try my best. So take it. Never say no. Don't conclude. Don't get fearful, because everyone knows, even your boss knows that if you have a positive attitude, you will try at least. Even if you are not able to complete it, you can say that I tried, I did this part, I was able to complete this part. He will be happy, and you will also be content that okay, you did something good. So these things are very important, having a positive attitude. So aptitude and attitude, two things are very important. The companies which come to you for job placement must have told you about these two things. Aptitude, they test your aptitude. They will take some test, analytical skills and speed and all that stuff. And apart from that, positive attitude, that means you are they will ask you, I'll give you this documentation job for 6 months, will you be comfortable? Or you are good in Java, they will say I'll give you C++, I'll give you .NET, can you do that? You will have to you need to have a positive attitude. You'll say yes, I'll take it, I'll try to learn and I'll do it. So that's it. That is what the jobs want now. The companies never want a person who will be very stubborn and say that no, I cannot work in anything else, I'll be only in this task. None of the company will have that kind of a person. They never want that person. So remember these points, they are very important. And don't fall in the marketing gimmicks of pamper yourself, get a comfortable life. Many advertisements will tell you that they will show you lots of comfortable things and these are good. Don't fall in those gimmicks. They're not good, because they are just for 2 days. You'll feel good, but after that it will be the same situation. So important is that love whatever you do, and comfort will come automatically to you as a bonus. That is very important. So you don't need you don't wait for a material, that I once I get this car, once I get this girlfriend, once I marry her, once I get this kind of job in this particular company, I'll be happy. No, you will never be happy. You'll always run and you will always wait for something. Don't get it dependent. So just love what you do and you'll be happy, and live in the present moment. You have time, you have everything right at the current moment. Okay, so I believe I did not take that much time. I am, yeah, it's 6 o'clock. So, as promised, so these are the bibliography. If you want, I can share the presentation as well to the panelists if they want, and they can. You can refer to the these materials. The websites are given here, and that's it. Now I am open to questions and answers. Thanks a lot for listening very patiently. I hope you were able to catch at least some part of this. Sometimes I might have been fast. I'm not sure. So I am open now for questions. Back to you, Lakshmi.
Yes, sir. I request all the attendees to pose any questions that they might have. If you have any doubts, just type them out in the chat box. Sir, we already have a few questions. I would like to cover them one by one. Samarth asks, when do you think AI should be introduced in the BTech curriculum? As in, which year?
So it all so so yeah. So there are different levels of AI. I would say nowadays even the school students are learning AI. So I think you have got an answer, right? If you are really
Yes, sir.
interested in AI, you can start right now. Don't wait for the school curriculum. It will be very good if they start teaching you about the AI, but uh, start going for some tutorial on the website. You will get lots and lots of tutorials. You can start with Udemy or Unacademy. There are lots of websites. And programming part, I would say the machine learning part, you can start learning from second year or third year in engineering colleges. uh, but yeah, as I said, from class 9, 10 also, people are have started learning Python and other languages which are helping.
Yes, sir. The next question that we have is from Nishant, and he asks, does AI require coding? As I am an electrical engineer.
Yes, if you want to create algorithms for AI, then you will require coding. You will have to learn the machine learning. You have to get inside AI, get some good book, or start with some tutorial, and you can learn the coding part as well. It's not very difficult. Most
Yes.
important, see, coding and programming, I would say the syntax is not important. It's algorithm which is important, the flow charts, the understanding of the coding, how it is going to work, what is the purpose, what is the conclusion, what are the decision points. uh, that is the most important part in the coding. So language, all the languages are very similar, because I have seen in the industry, I have been in this industry for 21 years, and I have worked from Perl, C++, C, then Unix, Java, C++, C hash, everything. So coding is just within 2-3 days you will be able to know about the syntax part. But it is very important to learn the concept, learn the algorithm part. So try to get some knowledge about the algorithm part, and the basics or of that particular language. The programming language is not important. You can learn it anytime.
Yes, sir. So the next question we have is from Sitanshu, and he asks, what are your views on big firms using personal data for their interest? The data privacy issue.
So there are lots and lots of regulatory authorities which are working behind the scenes. Even in IBM, uh, I would say every month at least we have to learn and write a test as well, related to the compliance part, the business compliance, and the data privacy trainings are there that we need to cater to. We need to learn. We have to cater to integrity of the data. There are many kinds of classifications done for sensitive personal information. Then what are the public information, what are internal information, all those classifications are there. and every company has to follow those rules. If they have got a data from some other company, different company, there are lots of forms, there are lots of contracts that happens, lots of signatures that happens, and it is a trust that gets established first between the company whose data you are providing. For example, being in IBM, if we get some data from some medical company, from some there are lots of companies from which we get data, but we can't touch the personal data of we have to sign so many forms, we have to encrypt, our laptops are encrypted, and we cannot do anything. It's totally even we don't have a USB enabled in our laptop, we can't take out any data from our laptop. So officially and as per the law, no one is allowed to do that. If you are working in a good company and if you have a client, first of all a trust is established, and all those things are taken care of. But yes, there are always chances of breach. So everyone has to take care of their data. So lots of malware detection, then social engineering and all, phishing attacks and hacking and all those happens. For that, lots of things are done from the security perspective. The company takes lots of steps, and they hire lots of security companies. Even we have a big security and risk management department in our company, and every project we do, we have a special SRM assigned for that, the security and risk manager, who takes care of all the data, and on any particular server what data will remain there. Then if some personal information goes there, then what are the things that we need to take care of, how many health check and patching activities, and then the privileges, the credentials, what kind of person will get what kind of credentials. There is a identity and access management, there is a full department dedicated for that. So all these things are there working in different companies day and night. So people are trying to take care of those aspects. But yes, threat is always there, and we have to be very careful. We have to take care of the integrity, and every person, every employee of that company has to be responsible for the data that he has.
Yes, sir. The next question we have is from Ruthvik Reddy. Will the number of jobs created be the same as the number of jobs lost because of AI?
See, that is what I told in one of my discussions, that what is the kind of job that will get lost. For example, if there is a clerk who has to check 100 documents every day, and he has to find out something from that document. So instead of that, if I install a computer and a AI device, in that case also people will be needed, because the machine cannot work itself, right? So there'll be few people, there'll be training for that particular machine. There'll be some security people also assigned. So number of people, it all depends how much the AI is getting implemented in that particular department. The kind of job will change, but it will not get lessened, it will increase, because as the implementation of AI increases, more areas will get affected by AI, more areas will get digital, and there will be more people required. The only important thing is that we have to keep ourselves updated. If a clerk in a government department or any department, they will say that I can't do anything else, then there is a threat to his job. Because even in a private company, because he has to learn AI, he has to learn computer, and he must be able to handle that data through digitally. Okay, because taking a decision based upon that data, we cannot rely 100% on AI. Even today, where AI is being used in all the areas, it's only 80% tasks that AI is doing. There are defects there as well, because the machine intervention, the human intervention is also there. They have to see some of the data, at least 20%, then taking decision based out of that data, that also human being has to do.
Yes, sir. I think your answer for this question also answers the next question that we have, whether we can eliminate human interference completely from AI. You said that humans need to be there at least 20%, right? I think that answers the question. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So the next question we have is what are the prerequisites for AI, and from where do I start coding? And if I'm a beginner without any coding knowledge, he has no prior knowledge, and he does not know where to start.
See, when I was in engineering college, when I was in engineering college, it was a very, very big challenge for us because uh, once I had to present a paper on, I was an electrical engineer. So I decided to present a paper on this solar photovoltaic cell. So I had to go to the library and sit there from morning till evening and physically look into each of the books related to the solar, related to the electricity, related to photovoltaic. And after scanning through 20 books and 20 and 100, more than 100 articles, I had to write that down in a transparent sheet slide and put that using different tools and write that down with sketch pens and tools, then get a that projector and go to the conference room and then present. So now compare that scene with today's scenario. Today you have everything, right? Today you have Google. Today you have a smartphone from where you can just with one single click you can get everything. So most of your questions will get answered. So just you can go to any for example, you can go to Udemy and start with artificial intelligence subjects, or you can just go to some free trainings. So now that I just gave you an introduction, I would say it is just introduction to AI in layman's terms and how it is useful, how it is used, it is helping us in all areas. If you are really interested, you can just go to some of the tutorial sites like Udemy and try to find some book there. I have also given some links in the bibliography. There also you can get some good links from where you can study, and then you can see what are the languages, what are the subjects that I need to learn. From there you can see and you can start right away from now, and try to have a target that okay, within this 1 month I will complete this book, I will learn about this part, and after next month try to dedicate a time. For example, see, uh, this 30 minutes of me goes to artificial intelligence every day. So that is very important. Otherwise you that would, I would say, it is a getaway from this presentation today. Otherwise most people see this at that time, they really get interested, but later on they tend to forget that and they go to their usual routine.
Yes, sir. So Tanvi would like to know what the idea and motivation behind the Watson supercomputer is.
Okay, so um, as I talked about Watson, so when it was evolved, it was made to in one of the TV shows that Joe Pardia, it was able to win that. So it's not about the question of defeating a chess player or winning in a show. That is one of the very small examples that was used to make it popular. But the most important thing, as I gave an example, that it is able to take decisions. It is able to calculate very fast. It is able to do what we humans will take hours to do. So there it helps. I gave many examples of Watson, how it is using. For example, uh, as a chatbot, then in the agriculture industry, as I said, in one of the counties in US, it is helping to take decisions when is the right time to water the plants. That is one of the very small things you would say, but it is very important that a machine, that an AI is helping you to take decisions in those respects. In the near future, it will also help the doctors to tell that give the history of that particular patient, and a notification will come to that patient from a AI enabled machine that now you should change your medicine, and from tomorrow onwards you need to take this medicine. So there also Watson can help. Then in CT scans, in surgeries also Watson is helping doctors. Sitting a doctor sitting in 1,000 kilometers apart, just by seeing from the camera and getting data from artificial intelligence enabled devices, he's able to give a decision that to other doctors sitting somewhere else who is actually near that physical body to do some kind of operation. There it is using. So you can imagine anything uh, from AI perspective. So Watson is using in all of these areas. It can be used everywhere, not only one area.
So the next question is from Mukul. He asks, what would you ask a fresher applying for an AI profile during an interview?
Okay, that's a good question. So, yeah, I would just like to see how much you are interested in AI, how much you have passion for learning the AI, how much you know about AI, and if at all you have done some kind of programming in AI, that would help. So, but for me, personally speaking, I'm not very much interested in how much programming you have done or how much things you have created. I would like to know how well you will be able to cope up with the environment, how fast learner you will be, and how much passion you have for that particular subject, how much time you have dedicated for that particular subject. I will not be interested in whether you are civil engineer or electrical engineer or any, because I joined electrical engineer to become an IAS officer. That was my dream, but later everything changed. I joined a software industry. Initially, I was very much fearful about programming. I used to shake in the computer lab in NIT Warangal because I feared programming. But later on, as I joined Tata, I was able to become very confident. I was interested, and then things came in place. So it is an example of if some people are fearing that, okay, you don't know this subject now, how will you cope up? It's nothing like that. Because if you are a fresher, the companies also understand that you are a fresher. We will expect as much as we know that you are a fresher. So we'll expect as much from you. Not like a pro, not like a skilled programmer, right? So we'll just see how much you are interested, how much is your passion for learning that, and if you have something better, if you have some experience, it is an added advantage.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this is where our questions end. This was an extremely informative webinar. I'm sure everyone who has taken the time to attend this event know very extensively about AI now. You touched upon implementation, applications, and even the impact on COVID-19, which is really relevant to us right now. Thank you so much again. Finally, ECA sincerely thanks the attendees of this webinar too. Please stay tuned to our handles for information about any future events. Sir, I hope you enjoyed conducting this event, and I hope the attendees enjoyed listening to Sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would also like to thank
Yes,
you
sir.
and all the attendees to have to hear all this very patiently. So thanks again for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for attending, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. Have a good day.
Yes, this concludes the end of our webinar, guys. Thank you so much for attending.